Hi guys, in this video, you guessed it, by that thumbnail, which is better? And in this edition of Which is Better, we're going to be rolling back the decades. We're going to be going all the way back to the beginning. Well, not that far back, but a couple of decades. Case in point, Black Sabbath versus Judas Priest. And we're going to start right now. Black Sabbath, a band that needs no introduction. They're a band that pretty much created heavy metal and laid the foundation for all those who followed. While someone like to point towards Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and claim them to be equal pioneers, neither of them were quite as heavy as Black Sabbath. Nor did they have the same eerie sound, bleak lyrics or occult imagery. Coming out in 1970, near the end of the hippie movement, Ozzy and his pals created quite a stirring music world. As the hippie movement ended and Black Sabbath spread their influences to countless other bands, the face of music would drastically change. The music on this album is pretty much what one would expect from an early heavy metal album. Guitars and bass are very heavy sounding, yet retain a bluesy feel to them. Bill Ward's drumming was also way ahead of his time. Ozzy sometimes comes off a bit raspy now and then, but his voice is still very good and unique. The album has an overall earthly sound to it, as if the band deliberately wanted an unpolished sound. The lyrics definitely reflected the band's interests, such as naming themselves after a horror film, and this is also evident, such as the case with Behind the Wall of Sleep, which is directly inspired by the H.P. Lovecraft story, and Beyond the Wall of Sleep and The Wizard, which is also based on the Wizard of Gandalf from The Hobbit. It's certainly debatable which Black Sabbath record is the best. I think it's safe to say that this is probably the most important. I highly recommend it to anyone that is new or at least has some interest in heavy metal. Not just for its importance, but it's just a quality record filled with memorable songs, and I recommend you go listen to this right away. So switching gears, we're going to look at Sad Rings of Destiny by Judas Priest. After making next to no impact critically, commercially or historically with albums like Rock and Roller, Judas Priest returned with Sad Rings of Destiny and knocked the music world flat on its ass. The opening track, Victim of Changes, takes the heavy blues rock template straight into the ground, taking it as its lyrical subject matter for the classic blues topic of no good woman who done you wrong. Plays that particular style of a proto-heavy metal far heavier than any of its early proponents ever did, and it absolutely tears the format with wailing Julie guitar solos and an insane vocal performance from Halford, who unleashes his trademark ear-shattering scream on a record at long last. From the closing screen, all bets are off. Having blown away all metal that came before it, the album proceeds to completely rebuild the genre in this image. What once a blueprint or two for new wave of British heavy metal and speed bands who will take this album as their gospel, have the ripper and welcome to it. Want an acoustic ballad that turns into a prog metal workout? The 1-2 punch of Dreamer Deceiver has your back. Want a death, destruction, mayhem, obsessed suite of songs that will set the power for every classic Judas Priest album to follow? Listen further, you'll find that and more on the second half of this album. As well as giving the instrumental performance of a lifetime, carving the Julie blueprint into the decapitated skull of metal. The album also marks a point where Rob Halford truly comes into his own as a singer. Even today, his vocal performance, ranging from demonic moans to bashy screams to delicate crooning to melodramatic ranting, is a joy to hear. I can only imagine what incredible shock of sense it is to have been around when this album first dropped. Comparing to every other singer on the hard rock and early metal scenes from this time period, Halford sounds absolutely possessed on this album, and the rest of the band are just raging berserkers to go along with it. Quite simply, this is the ship that launched 3 or 4 subgenres of metal, as well as establishing a credible alternative to the blues rock basis of metal as established by Led Zeppelin and Sabbath. If you care even slightly about the history of heavy metal, you need to hear this album. If you want to hear top-notch metal performed by a band at the absolute peak, then guess what? You still need to listen to this album. And on that note, let me know in the comments down below which album you think was better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.